and that is crimeresearch.org, crimeresearch.org. Dr. Lott, thank you for being here. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. So back to the background checks quickly. 5.1 million, $3,000. Those are denials. 96% of cases dropped. How is this considered, under any circumstance, a wild success?
Well, 96% are dropped at just the first two stages of review. You have
it's even worse.
Well over 99% are dropped that aren't recommended for prosecution, and an even smaller percentage that actually are prosecuted, and then you have convictions. So if you look at those 2 years, 2022 and 2023, and they're representative of other years, you're talking about 0.003% of the denials result in a conviction. So you're talking about 0.003 of 1%. So like 1 out of every 300 of 1% result in a conviction. So that's pretty tiny. And it's easy fix for this. If private companies had an error rate that was anywhere near the error rate that the federal government has, they'd be sued out of existence. If they had an error rate that was 100th the error rate that the federal government has, they'd be sued out of existence under federal law. And so my point is, why not just require that the federal government has to meet the same standards for doing background checks that private companies have to meet?
You've asked that question here before. I don't know that we'll ever get a fix. The other side flips it. The other side flips it to, well, obviously it's working because felons aren't buying guns, and they're willing to put up with 5.1 million Americans being hassled as a result. So it's guys, how about we just get rid of it altogether? As far as I'm concerned, I should be able to buy a gun out of a vending machine, but that's a whole different show. John, because we have such limited time with you today, I found this on How Stuff Works, and I thought this was interesting. More for the way it was written or wasn't. I'll let you determine that in a minute, ladies and gentlemen. What country has the most gun violence, total fatalities versus highest rates? And it goes into, let's just start with number one, Brazil, highest total gun deaths. Brazil has recorded the highest number of total gun deaths in the world, with tens of thousands of firearm deaths each year. Number two, United States, highest among high-income countries. The U.S. stands out among high-income countries for its high rates of firearm mortality. It has one of the highest gun death rates compared to peer countries and leads in civilian gun ownership. That it says in here, and I have to hand them for this, nearly 2/3 of firearm deaths are suicides. Keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. Number 3 was Venezuela. Number 4, Mexico. And it says violence linked to organized crime. Venezuela was high firearm homicide rates. Number 5 was Colombia, persistent gun violence challenges. Number 6, India, large population, high deaths. Jamaica, highest gun homicide rate. Ecuador, rising gun violence. 9, Haiti, extremely high homicide rate. John, it gives reasons for the other countries. In the United States, it just simply says the highest among high-income countries and doesn't give any breakdown. I found that interesting. When you look at something like this, what do you think when you have studied this for so long?
I don't take it seriously. Look, these guys, it would have been nice for the United States to go and say what the murder rate was or what the gun death rate was in the United States. The murder rate, it looks like this for 2025 is about 4 per 100,000 people. You have some of these countries which may be like 80 per 100,000 people or whatever. It'd been nice just to have some type of comparison there.
Some context.
If you want to go and look at, quote, high-income countries, how they define what a high-income country is, I believe is very arbitrary. One thing I would do, and I've done in the past, is to look at developed countries. There's an OECD, there's kind of a club for developed countries, and the United States isn't the highest there. The other thing you have to do, and I kind of go through this in my book, Gun Control Myths, is most countries don't collect data on gun homicide rates. They just report homicide rates. About half the countries in the world don't report gun homicide rates. we're used to getting all sorts of data here in the United States. The United States, if you look at homicides, we're below the average. We're below the median, which means half the countries in the world have a higher homicide rate than we have here in the United States. And one of the problems is that we look relatively high in terms of firearm homicides because the countries with the worst homicide rates tend not to report, break it down with firearm homicides. So if, we were right in the middle and the top half of the countries don't report it, it would make us look like we're right at the top. And it's just an artifact of what countries report that type of data and which ones don't. As far as their discussion there about saying, well, strict gun control is important for reducing this, and they point to two countries. They point to Japan and Australia. As far as we can tell, Japan had low homicide rates before they had any type of gun control there. Australia, you and I have talked about Australia many times, but I think it's incredibly misleading. I think the types of gun control laws that they had with their confiscation in 96 and 97, people can find on our website at crimeresearch.org. I think it actually was counterproductive. And we can talk about that. But, if they're just going to go and point to a couple countries and say, see, this proves that strict gun control laws reduce homicides or firearm homicides, they could point to Switzerland, which has probably a higher gun possession rate than the United States, or Israel.
And they don't,
but, they don't,
and they're not going to. And John, we've only got 30 seconds, so I'll cut it there. But we'll be talking with you on an upcoming show. Might even be this weekend. We'll reach out to John. Ladies and gentlemen, please support crimeresearch.org. Dr. Lott puts tremendous amount of effort into these researches, into the research and into these studies, so that we can bring you the facts and put this stuff in context. And there is another point that I want to make. I'm going to add an exclamation point to this when we come back. Dr. Lott, thank you for being here. We appreciate you taking time out of your afternoon to join Armed American Radio's Daily Defense. Thank you, sir.